I want to ask you one simple question. When was the last time you truly believed in yourself? Not in what others say about you, not in what your situation allows you to believe, not in what the voice in your head tells you at 3 in the morning when you can't sleep. In yourself, simply, without proof, without guarantees. If that's hard to answer, this story is for you. If the answer comes easily, this story is still for you. Because there was a man who believed in himself when absolutely no one else did. When he had been abandoned, when he had been fired, when medicine gave him 6 months to live. And the world you live in today, the phone in your hand, the music in your ears, the computer on your desk, the movies you love, exist because he never stopped, not once. His name was Steve Jobs. California. 1955. A baby is born and given up for adoption the same day. This isn't a metaphor. This isn't a movie. This is the reality of a child who never got to see his mother's face. His biological mother had one condition before signing the papers. The child must be adopted by people with university degrees. The first family who accepted him changed their mind at the last moment. They wanted a girl. So the baby went to Paul and Clara Jobs, a mechanic and an accountant, no university degrees. His biological mother refused to sign until they promised in writing that the boy would go to college. Steve Jobs entered the world as a human being nobody truly wanted. Returned, refused, passed along, and his entire life proved that means absolutely nothing. His adoptive father, Paul, spent hours in the garage, taking apart cars, putting them back together. He let Steve watch, touch, understand how things worked from the inside. He gave his son the most important thing you can give a child. Not money, not connections. He showed him that if you understand how something works on the inside, you can make it better. College lasted 6 months. Reed College, Oregon, one of the most expensive schools in America. Steve dropped out. Not because he couldn't do it, because he saw no point in it. His parents had saved every dollar of their lives for that college, every single dollar. He slept on floors in his friends' dorm rooms. He went to Hare Krishna centers for a warm meal. He collected empty Coca-Cola bottles and sold them for a few cents. A future billionaire sleeping on floors and counting cents from bottles. But at night, he would sneak into classes he wasn't enrolled in. Not computer science, not economics, calligraphy, beautiful letters, perfect spacing. He had no idea what it would ever be useful for. It simply fascinated him. He found out 10 years later when he designed the first Mac with beautiful fonts. No other company had ever done that. Everyone thought a computer was just a tool. Steve Jobs believed a computer could also be beautiful. Not a single moment had been wasted. At 20, he co-founds Apple in his father's garage. At 23, he's a millionaire. At 25, he has over $200 million and leads one of the most exciting companies in the world. And at 30 years old, he gets fired from his own company. Read that again. At 30 years old, Steve Jobs is fired from Apple. The company he founded. The company he built with his own hands. The company he loved more than anything. Steve Jobs walked out the door of the company he had built, and for the first time in his life, he didn't know what to do. He founded a new company. Next, nobody believed in it. The critics laughed. But at the same time, he bought a small animation division that nobody paid attention to. He named it Pixar. And in 1995, Pixar released Toy Story. the first fully computer-animated feature film in the history of cinema. Toy Story, Monsters Incorporated, Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, films that raised entire generations. All of it existed because Steve Jobs had been fired from Apple. The firing had created the magic. When Apple was on the edge of bankruptcy, they called him back. He returned without bitterness. iMac, iPod, iPhone, iPad. Each one changed an entire industry. And then, in 2003, diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, doctors gave him 6 months to live. He lived 8 more years. 8 years, in which he launched the most revolutionary products in the history of technology. He came to the office every morning knowing his time was limited. Maybe that's exactly why he was obsessed with every single detail. He said at Stanford in 2005, "Your time is limited. Don't waste it living someone else's life." On the 5th of October, 2011, Steve Jobs passed away. He was 56 years old. Outside Apple stores all over the world, people brought flowers, candles, handwritten letters. Not for a politician, not for a king, for a man who had built something hard to define. He had built proof that a person with a vision, even when the whole world laughs at them, can change the world. Now I'm closing Steve Jobs' story and opening yours. That job you lost? Maybe that's your Pixar. That door that closed is preparing a bigger one. You don't know that now. But Steve Jobs didn't know either when he was counting cents from cola bottles that those nights were building him. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need to know how it ends. You just need to keep going. One step, tomorrow morning. And if you want to hear stories like this every week, subscribe. I'll be waiting for you. Steve Jobs believed in himself when no one else did, and the world is better because of it. Now it's your turn. See you soon.